There are places that exist off the map, beyond the law, and outside the reach of human morality. Little St. James, a small island in the Caribbean that became the epicenter of global evil. For years, the most powerful people on the planet gathered here, presidents, billionaires, and stars. They believed that behind high palms, their secrets would stay safe forever. But they didn't know that every step they took was part of Jeffrey Epstein's grand game. This is a story of how one financier turned the sins of the elite into his primary currency. He was called a genius, but he was the architect of a system that had no right to exist. Today, we open the doors they tried to keep locked at any cost. You will learn how the blackmail factory worked and why witnesses suddenly vanished. Welcome to an investigation that will change your perception of true power. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't born with millions. He stole them from destiny itself. He started as a simple teacher, but his ambitions reached far beyond the classroom blackboard. His talent lay in knowing how to become useful to people who already had everything. Soon, he was managing the fortunes of billionaires without even having a license. This was the entry fee into an elite club where he set the rules of the game. Ghislaine Maxwell became his perfect partner and guide into the high society. Together, they built a perfect scheme to trap powerful souls on a hook of pleasure. They bought real estate all over the world, but the island became their main fortress. Every house was packed with hidden technology, operating 24 hours a day. The trap was set. All that remained was to wait for the first guests of honor. Little St. James, a private paradise that became a living hell for dozens of innocents. At first glance, it was the perfect resort, a place to forget all your troubles. Epstein's recruiters lured girls under the guise of modeling or massage opportunities. They were promised a better life, a career, and meetings with the world's elite. Instead, they found themselves in a prison with no way out. Cameras were everywhere, in bedrooms, bathrooms, and even along the forest path. Epstein recorded every moment, creating blackmail material on all his guests. Princes, presidents, actors, and tycoons. No one was safe from his lens. The island became the ultimate manifestation of his manipulative genius. He controlled their secrets, and therefore, he controlled their destinies. Epstein's friend list included Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and Bill Gates. They arrived on the Lolita Express, Epstein's private jet. Of course, they all denied any involvement in criminal activities. Prince Andrew, a close friend of Maxwell, was a frequent visitor to the island. Photographs and testimonies, everything pointed to his participation in the parties. Bill Clinton was a frequent guest, though his team categorically denied it. Epstein bragged that he knew dirty secrets about Clinton. Bill Gates flew on his plane even after Epstein was first convicted. The list kept growing as powerful people always crave adventures. And Epstein was a master at providing these adventures, for a price. Of course, there were those on the island who saw everything: staff, guards, servants. They were forced into silence, for Epstein held power over more than just his guests. Anyone who dared to speak faced the consequences. Some witnesses disappeared. Others died under mysterious circumstances. This created an atmosphere of fear that loomed over the entire island. Epstein knew how to keep people in a vice, using their own weaknesses. His victims weren't just the girls, but the adults who worked for him as well. They were all part of his twisted empire, built on secrets. The power of money and influence allowed him to evade justice for years. But even the strongest walls eventually crumble. In 2005, Epstein's machinations finally caught the eye of the Florida police. A young detective, Annie Curry, began gathering evidence. Maids, drivers, every piece of information was worth its weight in gold. Annie Curry wasn't afraid of threats. She knew she was protecting the innocent. It was only a matter of time before the moment to strike arrived. The first charges involved the abuse of minors. but the true scale of his crimes remained hidden deep beneath the surface. Epstein avoided harsh punishment thanks to his high-level connections. A non-prosecution agreement allowed him to walk free. It was a disgrace to justice, but it wasn't the end of Epstein's story. In 2008, Jeffrey Epstein struck a scandalous plea deal. He received only 13 months, and even those were under special conditions. In fact, he was allowed to leave the prison 6 days a week. His lawyers were tied to the government, and it was no secret. This deal halted the investigation for years and protected his accomplices. The victims felt betrayed. Their voices were silenced. But history didn't end. Tens of thousands of documents were waiting. People began to talk. Journalists began to dig deeper. Truth, like water, always finds its way through. And this time, Epstein's influence wouldn't be enough to stop it. 10 years later, in 2019, new evidence put Epstein back on the hook. This time, prosecutors were determined to see it through. He was arrested at the airport as he tried to flee the country. The world watched in silence, waiting for justice to finally be served. He was charged with sex trafficking and abuse. This time, the chances of escape were nearly zero. The case against Epstein revealed more and more horrifying details. Famous names were mentioned. Panic began to spread among the elite. Many of his friends tried to erase any connection to him, but the evidence was too overwhelming to be hidden any longer. On August 10th, 2019, the world was shaken. Jeffrey Epstein was found dead. It happened in one of the most secure prisons in the world, the Metropolitan. The official version: suicide. But questions arose immediately. The surveillance cameras near his cell happened to fail that very night. The guards, who were supposed to check him every 30 minutes, fell asleep. Many didn't believe a man with such secrets would take his own life. Epstein didn't kill himself. These words became a symbol of distrust. With him, the keys to blackmailing the most powerful people might have vanished. Was it an act of despair or a perfectly planned cleaning of a witness? Epstein's death didn't end the story. It only fanned the flames. After the master of the island was gone, the world's focus shifted to his shadow. Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of a media mogul and the architect of his connections. She went into hiding, but the FBI tracked her down to a remote estate. In 2021, she was sentenced to 20 years for sex trafficking and recruitment. It was a victory for the victims, but are all the guilty behind bars? Dozens of names from Epstein's Black Book still remain free today. Little St. James was put up for sale, an attempt to erase its dark history. But the memory of what happened there cannot be bought or sold. This case revealed how deep corruption can reach at the very top. Epstein's story is a reminder: darkness only fears the light when we refuse to look away. Though the main actors are gone, their shadows still haunt the halls of power. Epstein's victims, now adults, have finally found their voice. They created foundations to help others and demand new investigations. The world began changing statutes of limitations for sexual crimes. This is their victory over a system that looked away for decades. Yet questions about intelligence agencies and their role remain unanswered. Was Epstein a tool for those standing behind the curtain? Perhaps we will never know the full truth about the island of sin. But we know one thing: impunity ends where the light of truth begins. Look truth in the eye, no matter how dark it may be. The end.